Today's episode is sponsored by Drayton Realty Group. Their office is located at 653 South Coit Street. You can call Drayton Realty Group for all of your residential and commercial real estate needs.
Welcome to the Florence Foodies podcast, a place for the community to gather and share the stories, voices, and experiences that make Florence feel like home. To support this podcast and the Florence Foodies platform as a whole, click the Support This Podcast link found in the description.
Mandy, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm caffeinated, so we're good to go.
I'm working on it. This is actually my first cup, so I've got to catch up to you a little bit.
Oh, that's brave.
So I'm going to let you talk and let me catch up.
Okay.
So why don't we start off? We chatted a little bit before because I didn't know, and I always like to ask this to begin because this is a community-centric platform, so I always want to know what people's relation to Florence is. But you are from Florence, so what's your background?
Yeah, so born and raised, I went to Briggs Elementary, Southside Middle.
Me too.
Did you really?
Briggs. I didn't go to Southside, but yeah.
Okay, yep. Then went to South Florence, and then I stayed local for college and went to Francis Marion for my undergraduate and graduate degrees.
Cool. So let me ask you a question. Right here on the Pine Needles Bridge for us coming out of the neighborhoods, the front side, I guess it'd be the back side depending on which way you're going, but there's a big billboard of Lenore Cellars. Now, I heard there's a story circulating. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know. I would assume that it is, but it's been circulating widely that quarterback one at South Carolina turned down an $8 million-ish NIL opportunity and decided he wanted to stay at the University of South Carolina. Go Cox. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the bridge, there's another big billboard with State Farm agent Mandy Simpson on it right behind that one. Is it true that you have turned down a multi-million-dollar opportunity to stay with State Farm?
Absolutely. I just love State Farm. No.
I thought so. I thought it could be.
No. I wish that had happened, but no.
Okay, well, there is a giant billboard right behind quarterback ones. I'm just saying, so.
Yeah.
So all jokes aside, you are a local State Farm agent, and we had a mutual friend. That's how I actually met you, who was working in the insurance game for State Farm many moons ago. But what I thought about asking you, when we talk about insurance, there's a lot of different industries. Ours is one of them too, that the public has all of these opinions and ideas, and there's all kind of horror stories and myths and legends on the internet. So what are some like misconceptions or misinformation, stuff that's out there about the insurance industry?
I think one of the biggest ones is, a lot of times customers will call in, and I feel like there's a perception out there that my team or myself can influence or affect your rates, your insurance rates. And that's just not the case. We put in your data in a system, and there's a whole algorithm behind the system that is calculating the price. So when it spits out the price is the price. All I can do is make sure that you have adequate coverages and that you have all the discounts that you're eligible for. But outside of that, I can't manipulate your rates. And I feel like sometimes come on now, sharpen your pencil. I need you to work on this. And I'm like, I did everything I could. So really, your local agents, they don't control your rates. If I could, I promise you my rates would look a lot better as well. If there's a rate increase, I didn't influence that. They did not invite me to Bloomington, Illinois, to headquarters to say, hey, what do you think we should do about Sammie's rates over here? I have no control over that. If the rates are going up, mine are going up too.
Yeah, we deal with a lot of that too. People kind of like poking and prodding, and it's like, we can only control we don't control everything. So, I mean, I can't make a seller reduce their price beyond what they're willing to do it. So what causes the big differences from company to company then? So, when people are shopping, why is it they can find some company out of Connecticut and get these much cheaper rates or even coverage, period, in some cases?
So every insurance company has their own pricing algorithm, And the companies we kind of joke like they've got a knob back there. They're dialing it up or they're dialing it back, depending on what they're trying to accomplish. So it depends on that insurance company's costs, how aggressive they're trying to be. There's been periods of times where State Farm was just crazy aggressive, and we were writing auto policies and homeowners policies like gangbusters, and that's fun. We love it when it's that way. But then there's times where they're seeing our costs go up, they're seeing the claim volume go up, and they're like, "Whoa, we gotta back off this risk," because they have to be appropriately funded to make sure that if we have thousands and thousands of customers file a claim, that we can pay out those claims. So they're always adjusting things, and so sometimes one company is being more aggressive and maybe your current company's not. And there's risk if you're constantly changing insurance companies. I think in a prior conversation we talked about how that can actually adversely affect your rates. If you're changing companies every year because you're trying to always find those best rates, eventually it's going to catch up to you because the companies can see your claim history, but they can also see your length of time with your prior carrier. And if you're always switching, then that company's looking at you going, oh, okay, well, they're not going to be with us for very long anyway, so better get what you can out of them because they're going to shop.
I heard somebody say that exact comment the other day, and it was after you had mentioned that in that meeting, and I was just in earshot, so I didn't correct him, hey, I didn't say anything, but I thought about you whenever you said that. I was like, no, that's actually a bad idea, which makes complete sense. I think the one thing that people don't understand when it's like their pocketbook or their bank account is being affected, people tend to forget that business is business. So whether in this case, the insurance companies, they're taking on risk. So you could I would imagine y'all, especially probably some of the big shots higher up with these larger insurance companies, can look at these smaller companies and tell when they're probably going to collapse. Because if you're throwing out policies like hotcakes like that, and then you don't really have the money to back it, if a flood of those claims came in, then you're toast.
And we actually saw that in South Carolina in the last couple of years. On the homeowners market, a lot of insurance carriers were being very aggressive in South Carolina. We're not appropriately pricing for the risk. And so then last year and the year before last, we saw tons of carriers letting their customers know, hey, we're non-renewing, we're pulling out of South Carolina. And that was directly because they couldn't afford the risk. They were not priced appropriately. State Farm's still here because they understand that risk and they've been there a long time. So it does matter, and that's why they have to price appropriately for the risk, or they can't stay in business.
So that's a good opportunity to bring up something that I was interested in. There's been no shortage of talk of climate change everywhere. People talk a lot about climate change. And we had, the Green Deal and all of this stuff. So I was curious, and I wanted to ask you while we were doing this, especially here in South Carolina, and then obviously hurricanes is what most affects us here as far as catastrophic weather goes. What are there any shifts, or what are you seeing as far as results of climate in terms of how insurance companies are handling policies?
So there has been a shift, and it is related to climate. But if you look at the statistics, back in the 1980s, the average catastrophic event per year, there were 5 usually in the 80s. Now, in current times, that is almost tripled. There's usually about 13 catastrophic events per year. Now I'm looking at the Southeast. I can't speak to.
So that's the whole Southeast.
Yeah, the whole Southeast. Okay. So if there's that many more catastrophic events, there's that many more claims, and then you throw in inflation with the cost to rebuild that house or make that repair, it's going to make everything go up. And that's why you see these rising rates. But it is definitely, the weather patterns have changed. There's a lot more, almost triple the catastrophic events. So I'm not a meteorologist. I can't tell you why that's happening, but it is definitely happening.
Okay. Well, I tell people, people ask me a lot about hurricanes that are coming from the north or the west. And all I can do is, again, I'm not a meteorologist either, in case anybody didn't know that.
You're going to have to do Ed Pietrowski next.
Yeah, we get Ed on here. He can explain it. That'd be awesome, Ed, if you want to join us. Come on down. But yeah, I'm not a meteorologist, a scientist, or anything like that, a climatologist, if that's even a thing. So, but what I can do is tell people the truth that I've experienced. I have been in South Carolina majority of almost 39 years. And there's only been two really major hurricanes that I can recall that came through that were catastrophic. Hugo was the first one. I almost died in Hugo, actually, because a tree fell on our house where I was sleeping, and it came through the roof, and it stopped before it came into like the next level. And but I was really little too, so it's kind of foggy. And then Matthew, of course, flooded everything. Yes. How much did I see this, but I don't know some of the details on it because of when it happened. So how much did Matthew impact flood coverage, like specifically in Florence?
So, your homeowner's policy does not include flood coverage. You have to have a separate policy for flood. Some people don't realize that, and so that's a very ugly conversation when they thought they had coverage, and that's industry-wide. You have to have a separate flood policy. But what we saw, I don't know if you remember, before Matthew, we had the 1,000-year flood. That was the year before. And then Matthew came along and flooded again. And so I don't know if it's really technically a 1,000-year flood at that point with the levels we saw. So we had a lot of claims from it. But really, the only changes with flood insurance that we've seen, the National Flood Insurance Program has revise their mapping, and in some cases it helped people with their flood insurance rates if they remapped and they saw, hey, there's less risk here than we initially thought, and in some cases it increased it if they see an area that in those events did flood that they thought wasn't previously.
That's what
their rates could have gone up.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Is I would imagine a lot of places that did not require flood insurance prior to Matthew, after did.
Yeah, and we don't see a ton of that in Florence. Obviously getting towards the coast, and if you live by the rivers, you probably did see some changes there for sure.
Okay, so all right. Well, I would have thought that it wasn't that bad then in Florence. A lot of changes.
Not so bad in Florence. There might have been I didn't personally have any flood insurance claims from that, but. Yeah, it wasn't too bad in Florence.
Another insurance question I've got.
Okay.
I've got one I'm guilty. I got this little. I don't remember what illness I had. I was sick with something like last year, and I was in the bed for days. I don't remember what I had. I guess I don't even know what it was. But I don't get sick very often. But I was sick and I was down. So, and you can really only read but so much, and you just get tired of watching stuff. So I found somehow or another this little game popped up on my phone. That's the bottom line. So I downloaded it, and it was free. So it's this ball crusher game. So you get all these little blocks with numbers on them, and you got to bust them all up.
Okay.
And it's highly addictive. So I kept it on my phone. So if I'm in like a waiting room or something like that, there's probably a 50% chance I'll pull that game up and just sit there and play with it. Or like the DMV. That was probably the last time I was using it, the DMV. So. But there's these ads that pop up. They make you watch these ads, or you got to pay for it. I'm not paying for this stupid little game, so I just watch the ads. I have to sit there and watch them for like 90 seconds or 3 minutes. And frequently, they have these ads where it'll be like somebody with their phone out. They'll run up on somebody at the gas pump and say, hey, just a question. Completely fake, because like you could get shot for this. There's no way that this stuff's not scripted. They run up on them and say, "Hey, how much do you pay for your car insurance?" "Oh, well, I pay $175 a month," or whatever the number is. And they say, "Well, do you know about this app?" And they say, "All you got to do is plug your information in. It takes 3 minutes, and wow, $17 a month." And they advertise this. What is going on with that, really? Because I'm not the smartest chicken in the coop, but I know that cannot be accurate.
So what you're seeing is a lead company. There's all these different insurance lead companies out there. So there are, it's basically kind of like clickbait. They're trying to get you to click on it, give your information, and then they take your information and sell it to insurance agents who are buying those leads. So your information might be sold to 15 carriers, and your phone is about to blow up. I've been in that game when I first started. I started as a scratch market, so I didn't take over a book of business. I had no policyholders to call on. I had to make the doors swing, the phones ring. So I was buying those internet leads and buying it from those lead aggregators. And, they sell it to me. You pay anywhere. I mean, it could be $8 a lead all the way up to $25, $30 a lead, depending on what, characteristics you want, what you're looking for, and how strategic you want to be in it. And they're selling it, of course, to like 15 different people. So You go to call them. They're not quality leads because, of course, these poor people did not realize, like you, they didn't know what they
Just
were
trying to
getting
play ball
into. They were
crush
just
at the
trying to save
doctor's
some money.
office,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Like-
I just watched this ad. I didn't know. But yeah, they sell it, and then a bunch of insurance companies are going to call you, and you are going to get some legitimate quotes in there. Some of them they're just fishing. They're going to give you the lowest ball quote, not knowing anything about you, not knowing your motor vehicle record. They're just throwing mud up against the wall to see what sticks, see what they can get. And then you actually call in because you're interested. You're like, oh my God, it's saving me $100 a month.
Of course, yeah.
And then they actually put all the characteristics in, and you may or may not be saving money. But yeah, that's an internet lead aggregator trying to get your information to sell it to people like me and other carriers.
It's crazy how much money they're almost like parasite industries, really. They feed on, because it's a little bit different, but and we had talked about this a little bit, but another industry, I guess, secret, or just one thing that the public wouldn't necessarily know about is how a lot of leads are generated on our side of the fence in real estate is through these giant companies like Zillow and particularly Zillow and Realtor.com are the big ones. And then Redfin. But down here, it's mostly, we see Zillow and Realtor.com. And the amount of money that these companies charge you, the professional, for leads in your field is crazy. Like whoever came up with that, I guess they were genius.
Yeah, they were
But
thinking.
but it's kind of unfortunate because I saw a comment on one of these advertisements for one of those companies' lead generation programs, and the real estate agent, this was just like on Facebook, I just saw the comment because it was the most liked one for probably obvious reasons. It was a bunch of realtors and everything, but they said, they're buying our leads and then selling them back to us. And people don't realize it. So, I mean, some of the players that come into the game, like you said, when you came in, you've got to get in somehow. You don't, especially in this type of business, it's really community centric or referral based. So how do I compete with so-and-so that's been doing it for 20 years? Like there's no way. But if I can fund my own lead generation, and that is the way. So some of these people with the deeper pockets can actually do more business. But on the flip side, it can be a nightmare because it's like you said, that is the business of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, low closing ratios, not the best quality
So
of
you
customer.
might fill 100 phone calls to get two deals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the number 2. It's about a 2% to 3% closing ratio. Not fun.
But those two can keep you afloat, and then you
Yep.
start to build a resume, and now maybe you can actually generate some business without having to go through all of that. But yeah.
Yes, and that's definitely, I did it probably 3 years getting in and finally built up the book, built up the reputation, and then I try to be more strategic with my marketing now and like you said, do community events, do, referral based, because those are going to be the people you want to do business with.
Right. I've had to learn that as I've aged, but let's like they say, usually if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
It probably is.
And if your car insurance rate, whatever your coverage may be, is $120 a month, the likelihood is going to be $17 a month and be legitimate.
Exactly.
And that's the other thing too. I would wonder, okay, so this is another good question, because this is something that would concern me if I thought that I was finding a deal that sounded too good. How frequent is it that there are sharks out there that are basically, I mean, what's the likelihood somebody could find themselves in a situation where they've gotten coverage, whether it be their car, their home, their boat, whatever, but they actually have no coverage at all. So they're paying a monthly thing, but they go to file a claim for whatever it may be, and they find out there's nothing there.
Exactly. We actually this was last week, had a customer. He had 4 autos with me and house, and he called in. He wanted to cancel, and he said he'd found a much better deal. And I said, and this is someone I knew, so I was like, let me just look at it. Let me see what you're getting. So finally got the declarations page that he got from the new company, and they had slashed his coverages. His limits of liability were 4 times what the state minimum was with me. He had underinsured. I'm not going to get too technical. We'll probably lose some people, but basically, when I went through and I said, okay, here's what they've done, so let me quote it matching these coverages if you really want to take on this much more risk, because that's what he was doing. He was basically taking a lot more risk on himself instead of deferring it to the insurance company, and we were still cheaper than what the other company had done, but all they had done is just slash his coverages to get his rate down. And, like I said, if he had caused a serious accident with me and the policy I had, State Farm would have paid up to $100,000 of that other person's medical bill. So like if he killed someone in a car accident or now they're paralyzed, we would have paid up to $100,000. The other company was offering $25,000. And then some attorney would have been after his personal assets and income for the rest that he couldn't cover under that policy. So your limits of liability are really the insurance company's limits. That's what we're obligated to pay. But anything above and beyond that, you're putting your assets, your hard-earned money and savings at risk because, if that was somebody's mom, somebody's daughter, they're going to come after you. They're going to hire an attorney to see what they can get out of you outside of what the insurance company paid because you didn't have high enough limits.
Those guys are making a lot of money too, those attorneys.
Yes, they are. You see all those billboards out there. Yep. That's
it's
why you got to
crazy
protect
how
yourself.
It's all connected. People don't know. You got to cover your. That's why people wonder on our side, why do I have to sign so much stuff? I got to sign 1 billion documents. This is why, because there's all this liability involved in all this stuff. So everybody wants to keep their hands clean.
Yep.
So you got to sign a bunch of paperwork. So hopefully everybody's explaining it to you. Yes, it's interesting. So with all this nuance and all these moving parts and all these possible pitfalls, I'm sure that in any of these fields, if you've been doing it long enough, and dealing with the public, really, in anything dealing with the public, you end up with a lot of interesting stories and things that happen. So has there been anything in particular?
Let's see. One of my favorite stories, it actually, while I was a team member, so when I was training and a team member, I worked for Richard Skipper here in Florence. And our mutual buddy, Cliff Nobles, also worked for him. So we were in the same type of role. We were trying to, quote new business, get it in there. And I had a guy that wanted some life insurance. And at that point in time, now I can just email you. You kind of docu-sign it. You don't have to come in. But at that point in time, you either had to sign on a signature pad or I had to get like a wet signature on the paperwork for your life insurance. He couldn't make it to the office, and I was scrapping. I was like, I gotta get this. I gotta get this policy. So I said, no problem. We'll come to you. We'll make it happen. So we pull up his address, and it's in a sketchy part of town. And so Cliff looked at it. He's like, no, you don't need to go by that by yourself. I was like, all right, well, let's go. So we roll up there. And funny story, you could tell the cars were just kind of parked in the yard. So I just rolled up in there, and I remember Cliff, he was like, well, ease up now. You coming in with your black SUV, you're going to look like the heat. And I was like, okay, I didn't know. So we started taking the application. And one of the questions for life insurance, you have to ask, have you ever been filed for disability or are you currently on disability? So I asked the question, and the guy's like, yeah. I was like, all right, well, if you say yes, now it opens up another whole screen. It's like, oh, okay, well, what happened? He looks at me, he's like, I got shot right here. I was like, applicant was shot. All right. And so we're sitting there and someone knocks on the door. He's like, oh, hold on a minute. I got to go get this. I was like, okay. So me and my little studious self, I'm already looking at the next application question and preparing. And he walks outside. He's out there a couple minutes, comes back in. No big deal. So I'm proceeding with the application. 10, 15 minutes. Another dude knocks on the door. He's like, hold on, I got to get this. He walks out. And of course, I've just tunnel vision, which is usual for me. If I pass you in the grocery store and I don't say, hey, I'm not trying to be rude, I literally am just focused, So he comes back in and we finish up the application and we hop in the car and Cliff looks at me. He's like, so how do you feel about seeing your first 2 drug deals? And I was like, pardon me? What? And, if you know Cliff, he's seen some things. So he knew, these were people, this dude was basically dealing drugs out of his house. And he would go, get in the car, make the exchange, and he came back in. So while I'm taking a life insurance application, he's doing drug deals. And that was very eye-opening for me. I just, I guess I'm, sheltered life, whatever. But I basically did not see that coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. That was
I can
awesome.
see that, especially with Cliff in there.
Yeah. He knew what was up. And then to carry on the story, we're driving back. We just, witnessed these drug deals, took a life insurance application. And then as we're driving back, we had a whole conversation on how do you know if you're really saved? Do you recommit? Or what if you start sinning again? Do you got to turn your life back over to Jesus? So our whole conversation went from drug deals to being saved. So
I love it, man. That's how it goes.
Yep.
A lot of times now. And I told you before we cut the cameras on, just to tied in for anybody else that may care. Put some context to these names and faces if you watch Good Morning America. But Cliff was on Good Morning America, so he is from Georgia and he went back home. That is kind of how we met, because I was up at the office when he was working there, probably just, I don't know, up there talking to him about something. But when the hurricane came through and everybody saw what happened in North Carolina, what a lot of people may not know because it didn't get as much national exposure, is it ripped through Augusta, Georgia also. It tore Augusta all up. I guess maybe not as devastating as some of the stuff that happened in North Carolina with the water and all that, but there was a lot of wind damage and trees down everywhere. And they were actually going out and tarping people's roofs all over Augusta with chainsaws, cutting up trees and stuff with that ministry that he leads. And he was on Good Morning America. My mom called me. She's like, Cliff's on Good Morning America. I'm watching it right now. So very interesting guy.
And it shouldn't surprise me. Cliff, he's awesome. So kudos to him. I'm proud of him.
Shout out to Cliff.
Yep.
Your office is right there on Second Loop, and you're right beside somebody that's been a real friend of this show and this platform, Alan Cooks, a Rebel Pies over there. He's been a guest twice. Him and Chef Alex at Il Bungo Style are the only two-time guests so far on the podcast. And I know that y'all are, in the community a lot. I'm going to ask you the specific question here in a minute, but I'm going to kind of like do a level one before we ask what your favorite thing is. But just in general, you went to Briggs, so you're a Florence native. Yep. So what do you see when you think about the Florence food scene? What are your thoughts of where you've seen from where it was when we were kids to where it's at now?
I'm glad to see the growth in Florence. I mean, especially with like the downtown area. I mean, I remember when it was rough. You didn't go downtown Florence, and they've totally revitalized it. And you've got these new restaurants coming in. And anytime your city's growing and it's bringing in more industry, that's good for everybody. So yes, a little more traffic than what we used to see, but it's good for the community. It gives you more options, and it's bringing more income into our city. So yeah, I love it when a new restaurant. I would rather take a beating than have to cook. I hate it. I hate the whole process. I don't want to go to the grocery store. I don't want to tear up my kitchen. I don't want to have to clean up. And by the time I cook it, I don't even want it. I'm like, here, you're welcome. I did this for you. I don't even want it. So I eat out a lot in Florence. So if I have a new customer coming in from another state, I'm like, I got you. Let me tell you where to go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that is a perfect segue to a segment that we do called the Florence Foodie's Favorite Florence Food Item. And this is presented by Drayton Realty Group. And the question is, you know what? I'm going to hit you with two questions, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
I'm going to get a little bit more time out of you. So I'm going to get So I'll start with you first, but then I'm going to ask for your office, because I would assume y'all bring food into the office a lot for lunch.
It's every day, bro.
Every day. All right. So let's start with you first.
Okay.
No, let's start with the office first. That makes more sense. Okay. Mandy Simpson, State Farm office on Second Loop Road. What's the address?
804 Second Loop.
804 Second Loop. Whenever y'all bring lunch in, what is the number one go-to spot? What's your favorite spot? Which will be the one that you get the most?
We do change it up. I mean, for lunch, obviously Rebel Pie is open Thursday and Friday only. So we do get a lot of Rebel Pie. It's just convenient. It's right there. And it's obviously amazing food.
Yeah.
We bring in, let's see, Townhouse. I like that one. I'm trying to think. Chick-fil-A. That's popular. Tropical smoothie. So yeah, I'm trying to think if I'm probably missing some. The girls are good about, they just like start taking orders, but we change it up, because obviously doing it almost every day, we don't want to get bored.
Y'all have Chick-fil-A delivered? Mm-hmm. Chick-fil-A used to deliver. At my old office that I was at, probably like 3 times a week, the Chick-fil-A car was pulling up in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I told somebody 3 days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, somebody sent a message. I don't even remember what it was. I think we were talking about the Dave's Hot Chicken that's coming. And I was like, hopefully Florence will do it right.
I've been actually, Chick-fil-A is usually like a gold standard, like
they're the most consistent.
Yeah, consistent. I've been changing it up a little bit though. I've been loving Slim Chickens. They have a Cajun chicken sandwich, and I like the seasoning on their fries, and so I've been actually switching it up a little bit. And they're obviously on Pamplico Highway, so they're not too far from my office.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been enjoying some Slim Chickens here lately too, to change it up.
Well, I'm excited about Dave's. Dave's is a little bit different, but yeah, Chick-fil-A is the most when it comes to fast food.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A is the most consistent. So I find myself going there a lot too. So for that reason. All right. So then the main question, what is Mandy Simpson's favorite Florence food item when you go out to eat?
Now, I love some Mexican food. And so if I'm going out, I'm usually getting Mexican. And here lately, it's a different spin on Mexican, but I've been loving Baja Joe's. I have never gotten a meal there that I didn't enjoy. They have great customer service. I mean, I feel like when you leave that restaurant, every waiter, waitress, hostess tells you, have a good day, thanks for coming. I mean, you can just tell they're making an effort to interact, and I appreciate that. But yeah, and I like the atmosphere. Like the owners have completely revamped it. It did take a while, but obviously once you walk in and you saw the amount of work they did, I can see why it took a while. But yeah, here lately, Baja Joe's has been on there. But I mean, Mi Tierra, I'm going there. Margaritas, tacos and tequila. We rotate those Mexican restaurants at least once or twice a week. I'm eating Mexican, so yeah.
Okay. All right. Good answer. Baja Joe's is killing it.
Yeah.
They are. And that is a thing that they're doing. I'm glad you said that, and I'll just mention that before we wrap this up. But that's a big part of it, is that whole customer service, like a business. There's somebody that I follow on YouTube, kind of was some of the inspiration to some of the stuff that I've been doing. And he's a big fan of Chili's. He's in New Jersey. And Chili's, even though, I got my own stance on franchises, I'm pretty hard on them a lot of times, but I also always say they have their place, they have their purpose. And Chili's really, to me, menu-wise, is one of the best ones out there. Like, they got a really good menu. How shall I say this? But ours can be very hit or miss. I'll say it that way.
Yes,
it can be very hit or miss.
I agree. I feel like it's turned the corner. It's been better recently.
It has been. I've gone a couple of times. It has been. That's true.
Yeah, but I will, no matter what's going on, I do love their Southwestern egg rolls on the appetizer list. That's my go-to meal there. So,
but at Baja Joe's, they're doing a good job with that. The customer service. I mean, I was in that industry for a long time. Like service. There's, you got to be intentional about it, but it actually affects the product, and it would be good if we had a high level of service standards in Florence everywhere we went. Baja Joe's is doing a good job. I said all that to say that. Good job, Baja Joe's. Yes. Doing a good job.
No, I'm surprised by the number of customers that move to our company, not because of rates, but they're just fed up with the lack of customer service with their current insurance agent. And my team knows, like, we when you walk in, we offer you a water. If you're leaving, 2 or 3 people are going to say, "Have a great day." So we're trying, because it matters. People want to feel taken care of and loved on, and I feel like that should be customer service 101, but it's not.
It seems like a dying thing. And I won't throw anybody under the bus, but I'm going to take this opportunity to rant on the soapbox. So I went into a local business a couple of days ago over the weekend, and I went in there to purchase a camera and a lens for this purpose, which would have been about a $3,000 purchase. And no, I don't have a ton of money. So sponsorships for the Florence Foodies podcast are welcome. We do take sponsorships.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. But we needed to make that upgrade. And so, it's the cost of doing business. So I was there to make that investment, to provide a better product for y'all, the audience. And I stood there at this counter with the cameras, looking at these two different, $2,500 cameras. And I just stood to see how long I would stand there, and nobody came up to me after like 15 minutes, so I left, which probably was a mistake because they were on sale. And then so I went back Monday. I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and buy it. And the sale was over. So now I don't know what I'm going to do exactly yet. But anyways, that is not the point. The point is I stood there for 15 minutes and nobody came. People walked by me with the shirts on that worked there. And I called my buddy and I was like, dude, this would not have flown back because when we were coming out of high school, we worked in retail. That was, typically how you get a job. And it's just interesting times. I don't know what to make of it. It's kind of scary, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know if it's, a byproduct of so many people being on their phones and not engaging socially. And then so now you've got a generation of workforce coming up that doesn't know how to interact. Maybe that's it, or I do feel like the world's just a little bit meaner these days. Like people just
It
feel like
is.
they can say or do whatever they want and be a keyboard warrior, and it shouldn't be that way. Like do unto others as you want them yourself done.
It seems
I
like
messed
the
that up,
company
but yeah.
No, you got to do unto others
As you would
would
have them do unto you,
So
yes.
my thought is, it would seem like the company would be ticked off about that
Yeah.
because that's a pretty good sale.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, I understand like sales reps in retail, they're not making a ton of money. It's usually a segue job to your future career or whatever most of the time. But somebody's got to be caring about the boss's money. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
that's, you would think.
I'm telling you, if the world would all be just, whether it's the DMV, wherever, if they were all slightly commission based, think how much better customer service would be. I mean, because
Yeah.
now it's affecting your pocket. So I think that's what we should do.
Well, that's why a lot of realtors and insurance agents and mortgage lenders, you know, like don't really have. It's different. I've noticed that from being, and you would think with servers, but that's kind of hit or miss. That's a whole nother topic. But we know it's sink or swim. I mean, if you don't make a sale, you don't get paid, and you can't have poor customer service. And like, why would anybody want to deal with me if I'm a jerk? They could just call this other agent that actually treats them, you know, with good customer service. So, anyways, that's a pet peeve of mine. So that gave me a chance to rat about it. Or rant, not rat. All right. Well, Mandy, I know you're very busy, big time celebrity State Farm agent, billboards right behind QB1. I mean, what can you say? So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We'll let you get to it and get to writing those policies.
Well, I appreciate
But-
you having me. This was awesome.
All jokes aside, though, I appreciate you stopping by and taking the time to do this. And if you need to get an insurance policy, 804 Second Loop Road. That's right. Because I think Rebel Pie is 802.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, we're in the same
That's why I
plaza, the
was thinking-
Huntington
all right, yeah.
Plaza. Yep.
Anyways, right there on Second Loop Road, you can go by their office, reach out and give them a call. I will put their contact information down in the show notes in the description of this video. As always, we appreciate y'all's viewership and listenership, and God willing, we'll see you on the next episode. Okay.
Awesome.